cuentas. Tú estás... ¿Así? ¿Cómo es que te llamas tú? ¿Y eras compañera de Laura o nunca o qué? ¿Ah, sí?
Okay, everybody, I think we're going to start. For those of you who are guests to the school, welcome to the school. Mark Wegley, the Dean of the Graduate School of Architecture, Planning and Preservation. And it's just sort of a real privilege, really, to be asked just to say a few words of welcome on behalf of Professor Clara, Irazabal, and Alejandro de Castro, Mazarro, who have curated this conference, Colombia at Colombia. And all I can do is really, apart from express my gratitude to Latin Lab for this sort of really exciting conference with amazing people here, is to try to understand what it means. This in this room and on this little island of Manhattan, we are very familiar with the idea that great people and great ideas come here. That's the very mechanism of Manhattan. It's an immigrant city. It's a place for ideas and people that are changing direction and changing ideas. It's quite close to America. You can see America sometimes when the weather is clear. New Jersey is as close as America ever got to New York, and then it just sort of stopped. So it's also, of course, an interesting place to hesitate in the kind of global environment. You can see the world in a very particular way from here. But what it means to see the world from New York has completely changed over the last decade. And I think this is the one point I want to make. And that change means a conference like this has a totally different meaning. In this particular moment of time, we can no longer stay with the traditional idea of universities as research centers of experimentation and reflection and the developing of new concepts and so on, which may have interesting applications in the world. The world is evolving much more rapidly than any university. So universities, which are stupidity reduction machines, are losing their ability to function because cities are evolving more quickly than the mechanisms. And there are many consequences of that. One of those consequences is that the real laboratories of the world today are in so-called developing regions. And in those regions, the demographic, political, economic transformations are so fast, urban transformations are so fast, that in my opinion, very strong opinion, whole new forms of intelligence will be generated. So these are also the incubators of the future philosophy, thinking, culture, art, and so on, in relationship to urbanization. So the role of a school of architecture like this one is no longer to act as a place where all voices from around the world can come to think together about what to sort of, as it were, imagine the city of the future. You can almost argue that the city of the future cannot be imagined from beautiful but somewhat ancient technology like Manhattan. Or to place it in a slightly different framework, in the year 2050 there will be something like 9.2 billion people on the planet, 70% of which will be living in cities, and no one, even experts on megacities, has any idea what that means. No idea at all. So the concept of city is under radical revision, and in order to address the question, what would urban life be like in 2050, which is, by the way, tomorrow, we would require an enormous wide bandwidth of expertise reaching from inside universities to the business world, to the political world, the economic world, and so on. It would really require a massive effort, and that massive effort is to some extent already occurring in those parts of the world which are changing the most quickly. So in this situation, when Colombia comes to Colombia, it's no longer, let's say, adding one more voice to increase the density of brain power and the flexibility and knowledge in order that a kind of synthetic understanding of the future might be then projected back out of a sort of center of knowledge. Quite literally, what comes to Colombia is is the teaching. So we are here as the students of Colombia because it is, of course, Colombia that took the lead in so many areas of innovation and creativity, addressing issues that seemed impossible. So the impossibility of the situation in Colombia produced the most magnificent and transformative models that now eventually get taught in schools of architecture like this one. So when Colombia comes here, of course you come after the ideas born in Colombia have already changed the curriculum of a school like this one. So very much the spirit of this meeting, I think, is the spirit of the kind of next wave, second wave of wisdom coming from Colombia to a school. Again, if the role of this school is to act as a kind of stupidity reduction machine, your presence here is absolutely vital, and we stand before you as idiots. Now, if we can be idiots with good food, we will survive. So I hope that you enjoy being here, but certainly understand that the effect of this discussion goes very, very deep, and to a certain extent, the university here just acts as a node in a kind of global hookup of similar people thinking of similar issues in different situations. So I have to say once again to thank Latin Lab for sort of instigating this conversation this afternoon, but also understand that, of course, for me, Latin means lab. That is to say, that which is Latin, it's a huge question, what and where is Latin, is one of the primary generators of new thinking about the future of the city. And the concept, of course, of social urbanism, any concept which everybody loves, is already a problem. So maybe this is what the purpose of this conference will be, to actually imagine how we can even go further and challenge the concept. But to say the very least, the kind of refusal of the normal distinctions of agency and the refusal of what constitutes a problem and what constitutes an advantage that was experimented with now quite a long time ago in a series of cities in Colombia, and now is going through the kind of third or fourth generation of thinking. It's unbelievably lucky for us to be able to be with you in this room and to listen to these latest developments. And the final point would be just to return to, well, okay, have I now argued to you that there's really no need for a place like Columbia University? Almost. Almost. But I think, given the astonishing speed of transformation in what is almost certainly the single biggest experiment in human history, which is the evolution of the city, given that enormous explosion, the quietness of Manhattan, the fact that this place is so simple, so orderly, so quiet, so quaint, and no longer a city of the future, this actually enables a slightly different kind of reflection. In other words, the way we see the world is different, but it's also something like a retreat. So I think it's an interesting moment in time in which the real experts of the world can retreat to New York for reflection. So you come here because we are so quiet and so calm, and so it's like going to the countryside. So of course what's happening when you come to us is that you are coming to the provinces, and we hope we give you a good country meal and you have a good time. But also know that you are and have already been for a long time our teachers, and we are just, ungrateful students, I guess. But please welcome, and thanks to Clara and Alejandro.
It is always a very difficult act to follow, to go after the dean, but I'll try my best. Good afternoon and welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here to Colombia at Columbia, Innovations in Architecture and Urbanism. I'd like to start by showing my appreciation to all the people and institutions that have made it possible for us to be here today. Thanks to the dean, evidently, for his generous introduction and for all the support that his office has given to this conference and the Latin Lab in general. Thanks to Gavin Browning, Director of Events and Public Programs, Lucia Halachian, who was a special event coordinator until recently, and the rest of Gavin's staff for their assistance in multiple ways and their careful attention to detail. Thanks to Andrea Marpillero Colomina, Urban Planning and Historic Preservation Media Coordinator, for pitching in multiple ways, and the IV team for overviewing the technical aspects of the meeting. Special appreciation also for the Institute of Latin American Studies, particularly in the persons of Tom Trebat, its director, and Esteban Andrade, the program manager. They have been unconditional friends and benefactors of the Latin Lab and primary supporters of this conference. The original idea for this conference was born out of a group of students from GSAPP across programs, of which I'm very proud. Juan Esteban Correa, an alumnus of our urban design program, Ricardo Cárdenas, an alum of the real estate program, and Jesse Keenan, then student and now professor in the real estate program. I'm glad the Latin Lab could be an instrument for the realization of their dream. I thank also other students that have volunteered or cheered us up along the way. Lastly, I owe great gratitude to my multitasking right hand, Alejandro de Castro, program coordinator of the Latin Lab, whose diligent hard work and good spirits made this event possible. I'm often asked the question, where do you work? I say, Colombia. Oh, what are you doing in New York then? At which point I need to clarify, Columbia University, not Colombia, the country. So this is exactly what we're doing here this afternoon, settling once and for all the difference between Colombia and Columbia, but most crucially, the need to consider Colombia at Columbia. The two important namesakes of Christopher Columbus in the so-called New World were born to meet each other face to face and befriend. But why a conference on Colombian architecture and urbanism? Why now? Colombia has the fourth largest economy in Latin America, but income and wealth are grossly unevenly distributed. In 1990, the income ratio between the richest and poorest 10% was 40-1, climbing to 80-1 in 2000. By 2009, Colombia has reached a Gini coefficient of 0.587, which is the highest in Latin America, a shameful distinction. Colombia has also one of the strictest stratified social systems in the world, composed of 6 strata. Only 6% of Colombians make up the wealthier stratum 6. And there is an uncanny 666 trilogy here. I don't know what that means. With at least 35% of Colombians living below the poverty line and 17% in extreme poverty, Colombia has a high rate of unemployment and a work market dominated by informal jobs. The country shows only modest progress in the struggle to defend human rights, as exemplified by the number of dozen workers' unions members that have been murdered recently. The armed conflict that has lasted decades has victimized thousands of people across the country, with particular pernicious incidents over rural and indigenous populations. So it is quite evident that we're not here to romanticize conditions in this country. Instead, we want to recognize and critically problematize the challenges that still persist. Just in the midst of defiant conditions, there are multiple and courageous projects and people being implemented to construct a more just and sustainable Colombia. So how would a 21st century Colombia be? And how can architecture, urban design, historic preservation, planning, and development contribute to its getting there? The speakers of this conference today will put productive ideas, experiences, questions, and most importantly, daring proposals for us on the table that are charting the way. Through them, we want to acknowledge and learn from some daring and progressive architecture and urban interventions some cities in the country have invested in recently. At the heart of it all are the ideas of social urbanism and integral urban projects. But there are also novelties and progress worth highlighting in the areas of public transportation, air quality management, regional planning, middle-sized city planning, and harnessing of the Colombian diaspora in the country's development, to name a few. We all know that cable cars make for wonderful postcards, don't they? Hence, we have it very prominently in our poster for this conference. What you may have not paid much attention to, though, is the street below the cable car. This is a new street built in this neighborhood, Santo Domingo in Medellin, with good paving and lighting, ample sidewalks, street furniture, trees, etc. Not only is the street creating greater accessibility and multimodal connectivity for the neighborhood, it is also allowed the possibility for some 300 households to open up small businesses and community services along the newly refurbished streets and paths. These new shops expand these households' livelihood, eliminate the need for commuting for people living and working in the neighborhood, and provide members of the community access to amenities previously inexistent in the area. It is important to mention that not only was this neighborhood selected for such upgrading interventions because it was a poor area in Medellin, it was also riddled with violence from drug trafficking that severely restricted the social and economic opportunities of its inhabitants. Again, you may all have seen the photogenic cable cars of Medellin, but you may not have met the people that ride in them, such as Doña Ana. I met Doña Ana a couple of months ago when I was touring the Santo Domingo neighborhood with a member of the team that had carried out the implementation of the Desarrollo Integral de Barrios, the Integral Neighborhood Development Intervention. As we were passing in front of her new building to your right, she came out running from her apartment to greet the guy I was walking with, kissing and blessing him with joy. She invited us to her home, and once there, took me to her bedroom. In there, Doña Ana had a big display of articles and photos hanging from the wall that depicted the transformation of her community. From images of her dilapidated shack at the verge of a waterway to the sturdy building that she and her family were inhabiting today. She let me know very proudly about the involvement she and other members of the family and her community had had through the process of the design of the new structures and the relocation they were part of in the community. That day of my touring of Santo Domingo, I was genuinely impressed by the many pieces that indeed composed the so-called integral neighborhood development strategy put in place, from the cable cars to the new paved and equipped roads, paths, bridges, and so on. The new retail stores, the business incubators and community banks, the new landscaped and furnished public spaces, and very saliently, of course, Giancarlo Massanti's Parque España library building, which is not only a library, but a community center that offers health services, childcare services, and performing space. All of those physical interventions, the outcome of design and planning, are really inspiring and commendable in and of themselves. Well, what really struck me as the crux of social urbanism was really brought home for me by Doña Ana. Social urbanism, she taught me, was not so much about outcomes, as much as they were important. Social urbanism was primarily about people. And about process, about integrating community members as critical agents in all the phases of the transformation of their communities. Doña Ana felt that her agency was respected and genuinely appreciated and incorporated in this process. It was a source of pride for her, solidified her sense of ownership and responsibility over the project, and increased her social capital and standing in the community. Architects, urban designers, historic preservationists, planners, real estate developers usually have a bias for determining the appropriateness or success of interventions based on outcomes. Social urbanism, I would argue, is invited us instead to hold on to the importance of outcomes, yes, but to refocus attention to issues of process, and most importantly, to the substantive integration of communities in the redevelopment projects that affect them. In a recent interview, our keynote speaker, Alejandro was asked what social urbanism was, and he responded, quote, "It's a political decision to have the greatest public investment in the poorest parts of the city. The implementations of these policies also has to come with the transformation of urban and physical space, especially changing the skin of the city to make the politics visible. The goal is to do it with the best quality and the best designs, with comprehensive physical intervention policies, but also such that the physical projects would just be the means for starting an integral process of transformation." End of quote. As we devote this afternoon to the critical analysis of social urbanism and other urban interventions in Colombia, my invitation would then be not to lose sight of Doña Ana, of the rights and expectations that she has vis-a-vis the betterment of her community, of the energy and the talents that she brings to bear to that process. And more poignantly, not to lose sight of the questions that she poses to our disciplines. What is the proper role of the architect, the urban designer, the historic preservationist, the planner, the real estate developer, so that the full potential of the Anas of the world and ours as professionals in the process can be realized? It is then with great expectation and humility that I open the floor at Columbia to learn from our colleagues from Colombia. Fasten your seatbelts, my friends. We're up for a treat/trip to Colombia at Columbia. Thank you. We start with Alejandro Shibori, Director of URBAN, Center for Urban and Environmental Studies at Universidad EAFIT. In his private practice, his work has won the National Architectural Award and the National Urban Planning Award, both given by the Colombian Architectural Association, in addition to the Urban Planning Award at the Pan American Biennale and the Curry-Stone Design Prize. From 2004 to 2005, he was General Manager of the Municipality of Medellin Urban Development Corporation and the Director of Urban Projects for the Municipality of Medellin from 2005 to 2008. He has been an invited professor at a number of international and Colombian schools of architecture. It is a treat to have Alejandro here with us as a keynote speaker. I had the opportunity to hear him a couple of months ago in Medellin, And I can tell you, I've heard many talks in my life, but seldom has a talk resonated with me in the manner that Alejandro's did. There was nothing particularly fancy or otherworldly about it. We have plenty of that in academia. Instead, it was the simplicity of it, distilling to its bare bones the urbanism we should aspire for. I consider Alejandro a prophetic voice in our fields, and we are thrilled to have him with us today. Let's now welcome Alejandro.
So, thank you very much, Clara. I don't know how to say after your talk. Thanks, Clara, for explain better than us what we are going to trying to talk and to explain this afternoon. Thanks, Colombia. Thanks, Alejandro, for organize everything for our trip. And I would like to say thanks as well to Juan Esteban Correa, who is a young architect from Colombia. He was here the last semester, and he did a lot to open the space to have us here. So I'm going to talk something about Colombia, but of course it's my view, it's not everything. So Colombia has very interesting geographic conditions. I am not sure how it works. Okay, that's it. You have this. So, 1/3 of Colombia in the southeast belongs to the Amazon jungle. Okay, perfect. I'm sorry. That is close to unknown because the Amazon jungle from Colombia is not like flat, the Amazon jungle from Brazil, for example. So you cannot penetrate through the rivers. As well, the Andes Mountains, the lines of the Andes Mountains ends in Colombia and separate in three lines of mountains. Between the west line of mountains and the central one is Medellin here. Bogotá is in the east side, Cartagena is in the Atlantic coast as well. So it's like a point of tension on the Amazon, the jungle on the south, the Andes mountain. It links the Pacific coast with the Atlantic coast. So there is another very interesting region here that belongs to Chocó and Urabá. That is the link through the Atrato River to the Atlantic until the Pacific Ocean. This is the most diverse, the second most diverse area of the world. Is the region of the world where you can have the upper ratings of raining, and as well is the first in diversity of birds, because the migration from the north and the migration for the south and the special conditions that are here. Maybe the only that known how strategic location and conditions we have there until now are the birds and the drug dealers as well. So, from the last 8-9 years, we had in Medellin, I am going to talk mostly about Medellin, of course, maybe in the talks and with our friends from Bogota, they explain different things about Bogota and other parts from Colombia. From the last 8 and 9 years, Medellin had, from that time, civic movements. The Sergio Fajardo leads the process and he won the election in 2003. He started in 2004, in January, and ends in 2007. Alonso Salazar continued and ends the last December as well. Alonso belongs to the same group that we have been working with. And today we have a very special conditions in the political entorno. The Sergio Fajardo won the election from the governor. He is today the governor of the state. He started in January. And Aníbal Gaviria, who used to be the mayor at that time, won the election from the municipality of Medellin. So we have a very special moment because for the first time in our history, in Medellin and Antioquia, they both are building a political program together. And in some way, today I am outside the administration. Some of us belongs today to the university, but we are working inside and in very close manner with the municipality and the governor. Here are two of my best friends, both of them architects, Beatriz Rabe and Ani Vélez, and they are going to talk to you from different views, from the political approach. Beatriz is leading today the housing company of the state, and Ani is one of our best architects and designer from housing. Sometimes my English is but bueno, you will understand. We later, for sure, we will have time to explain what was happening and what is happening today in our conditions of violence. I am now the director of Urban and Research and Environmental Center at the University of EAFIT. And we are trying to put and to build a think tank, a space to meet some of these public strategies with our research and with our consulting works. So we try to maintain and to build a space where our technical knowledge could meet social things, environmental things, and cultural things. This picture is taken from the northeast part of Comuna Nororiental. You see to the right the cable car, and at the middle of the picture you see the downtown. And at the end of the picture you see the barrio that we call El Poblado. I am not going to talk of that part of the city. It's the wealthiest part of the city. The focus of the last administrations were and are today putting the efforts and the investment and the research in the poorest areas and that place of the city that we call the other city years ago. So, Medellin is a city that has today 2.5 million inhabitants, but the real city is the metropolitan area plus the 10 municipalities that have 3.5 million. We have, our city is like a sheet that you can put like this, because you have the two mountains that are the limits of the city. So we have a natural system that is very powerful, but we have as well a linear city. We have two problems that as well two very big opportunities. So what is happening in the green borders of the upper part of the mountains is a very complex situation. The slopes and the inhabitants that are there are in very complex situation, and today, from many different approaches, we are trying, and different persons in institutions trying to find answer of that. You see here the different conditions. This is the south, this is the north. The municipality of Medellin is here, 2,500 inhabitants, and the other 10 municipalities. The west line of mountains here, the east, and the west here. This picture was taken in the 70s. So today, the house and the occupation is close to here. You have 1,400 meters here and 2,400 meters here. One of the keys that help us to understand how to operate and how to define some of the approach to act in that territory for course are that we call the huellas del agua, the lines of water. So we have the Medellin River today is like a canal in most part of the valley, and we have a lot of streams, creeks that goes down that define very precisely the form of the city, and you can understand the city better in section, because this depends the level of the slope, of the inclination, and the urban conditions that you can describe the situation, the city, in a section. So we define from the first moment to understand and to work in the research at the university in that abstraction of the map, and to locate in some specific points of action, some library parks, in a point of tension where the natural system is one of the keys. Medellin as well has, I am not going to talk a lot about it, has a metro line that operates from, starts to operate 12 years ago, that goes, we have two lines, goes from the south to the north and from the west to the east. We have today 3 cable cars that links to that system, intermodal system, in the northeast, in the central west, and in the upper part here. And the city is planning a new tramway that goes through the east part as well. And the city this year starts a system like the Transmilenio of Bogotá with 2 lines. Some ideas that help us to describe the concept or the things that we define like social urbanism. The first is to connect the divided city. So Medellin, like other Latin American cities, is very segregated city. It's a very segregated city. And the north part of the city, in the most violent times, was another complete different world. So we are trying to define politics, strategies, urban actions, architecture, trying to connect in the physical term, but as well in the mental term, with big infrastructures, with small bridges, with small streets, with a symbolic architecture that open and they build a big space to understand the different conditions of the city. So, I think one of the most important things, we have a lot of problems, Clara. I'm going to talk through the good things. So, but we have a lot of problems. It's very far to idealize the condition. But I think one of the best things that the city can do, or can did from the last years, is that today the population of Medellin understand the city in the complete form. One of the problems that from many of the Latin American cities have is the half part of the city doesn't exist, because even you don't map, you don't draw many places of the city. So the combination of this big infrastructure of transport, this symbolic architecture, and as well the small changes of the skin of the city, is connected and is building a whole idea of the city. So today in the newspapers, many things are happening in the complete city. Activities, cultural actions, and still we have a lot of problems. But the whole idea of the city of Medellin starts to exist, and is very good for that, I think. We had a lot of examples that belongs to an urban and social strategies, and that combines in a holistic way pedestrians, bridges, transport system, housing, and recover some environmental things. For example, to combine a bigger idea with the punctual actions, let me explain some ideas that help us to locate the first group of library parks in Medellin. This is Medellin, the downtown here. The first thing from the location of the library parks, there are in the first ring of the upper part of the city, with the centrality of the new activities can help a lot of many people, young people there. So we start to redefine many urban and social services from that buildings. But there, most of them are connected with new and future big infrastructures of transport, like the last station of the cable car here, the last station of the metro and the first of the second cable car here, the corridor of the tramway that the city is designing, for example. Trying to build a network of public services, accessibility, not only for that, the person who lives there, and as well for the whole city to can use and access that services. But one of the most beautiful things, I think, is that many of those places are selected as well because there are opportunities that belongs to the natural system, to the site of the creek here, to the Cerro Santo Domingo, the slope of Santo Domingo Sabio, to the site of La Quintana Creek, trying to redraw some of these conditions. This is the Library Park of La Quintana that helps to recover the Park of La Quintana here that connect the two barrios. And the city is planning a corridor of transport system here that links the natural system, the barrios, and the new building. In the same way, is the same picture or close that Clara shows us, but I like to talk this. I like to see this picture as well, that the form that we can understand and see the city with different perspective. For us, these cable cars and for the people are very important, of course, from that transport system, but can give you the idea of the section of the valley. So you can go through down to the river, to the upper part, to the mountain, where the city starts and operate a new protected area, like a public space, a public park that is an RV park. So you have the comprehension of the territory, a new image of the territory. Medellin, in some way, did. I am not sure if it was a proposito, did and build many different projects that give us a transparency and give us to see all the conditions and help us to see and to understand the different conditions of the city. And we start in an inverse form that the traditional cities. We define in some way which neighborhoods, which barrios belongs to the poorest indicators and data, and as well which of them belongs to the most violent places. And most of that situation is in Medellin in the 20% upper, the level of inclination, is the level of slope up to 20%. So we start to work from the middle part of the mountains to the direction of the valley. And of course, we have a lot of things to do along the river, but many of those projects were located there. So for us, the architecture helps a lot. And we're trying to select and define and build some competitions to select some ones of the most important architects in Colombia. Because the beauty, the dignity helps a child to feel inside a development system as well. So that condition is very important for us, but belongs to a complex and different system. This is, for example, a new school that owns the National Prize of Architecture, was designing from Carlos Pardo, an architect, that the school opened a public space on the top, like a terrace and mirador to the city, a cultural space, and start to link different conditions. Of course, many of that housing has a lot of problems, but the recovery to the street to connect with the transport system and the life inside that school is very important. This is another example in completely different location. We have close to the downtown where the old dumpster of the city was, Moravia, and today lives 40,000 people here. So this is the street, Carabobo, that comes from the downtown and ends and starts, is like a frontier. It starts where all the barrios, the Comuna Nororiental is. So here is the location of the last building who Rogelio Salmona designed, that is a cultural center that starts to penetrate the Moravia barrio through the new corridor that recover a creek like a linear park. The symbolic situation of the architecture and that architecture like a space to meet the people and to start to do many different situations. In the same manner, or not in the same manner, but close to that, you see here the cable car station, the library park, and the most complex situations belongs to the creeks, where the high rates of unemployment, the high rates of informal conditions. So here is the picture after the interventions, where the program recovered the 70% of the housing, recovered the natural conditions, not the natural conditions, but recovered the conditions of the creek to build like a very simple paseo, some different strategies to link with the barrio and replace the 30% of the housing with a new housing in the space that were opened there. This is the Juan Bobo housing program. So another idea as well is the architecture and urban projects. It's not another idea, but we start from the beginning thinking that we have to move very fast the plan to an urban interventions. So the urban interventions in the holistic scale approach help us to, from the start point, to incorporate social, educational, and cultural programs, and help us to define in a very precise way the territory with that the strategies can apply. This picture is in the west part of the city. You don't see the creek that is in El Barrio San Javier. Here is the last metro station, and from here start the second cable car that goes up to the mountain in Juan 23, Ciudadela Nuevo Occidente. But the city did a competition here for the new library park. And I am taking the picture from the new school. So this is like an intermodal that not every project comes simultaneously, but during 8 years in some way did a very dynamic and integrated approach. This is the other side where the city recover the botanical garden. When you, I think most of you know the orchid hall from the botanical garden. I am not going to show you. And we recover, we did a public space in the ring open limits of the botanical garden. This is a design from Ana Elvira Vélez y Lorenzo Castro. I think, I'm not sure, but maybe are you going to show some things of the project, some ideas? So that idea, the urban and holistic integrations that combine the big infrastructure, the cable car, the competitions for the sum of the big buildings, the sports facilities, but the most important thing is the interventions, projects, and programs that you cannot see here. The 80% of the budget goes through that programs, but the visibility is or are the infrastructures. So, in the strategy, the integral urban projects, we define in a very precise way which territories the city have to intervene and define the steps how to do it. And the first model that we're trying to build was in the North Oriental Comuna with the first cable car is the Comuna Nororiental, 170,000 inhabitants here. And the city today, we start from 2004 with 3 areas, this one, and the Comuna 13. Today, the city is still working here, finish a project here, and start working here. This idea of project combines, and in a very precise way, all the different scales of accessibility, formal and informal, to define different steps of connection, all the different conditions of the natural system and the open space, the condition of the housing and the public buildings, and start to define a plan that each year and a half has a target. You can size, you can expose to the community, you can work with that dateline. But in a very simple way, you define, for example, in the first station of the cable car we understand like a proyecto palanca, the big infrastructure around the stations start to define a holistic intervention. This is the housing program of Juan Bobo that you see here, the links of the small bridges that connects and start to recover the creek and the condition of the house here, for example. And in this case, a pedestrian street that improves a lot the small business and the economy activities under the earth. We study in detail the conditions to locate strategically different programs and so on. This is, for example, another situation. In the last station of Santo Domingo Sabio, metro cable car, we start with this small street, defining an open space that is a Mirador Park here, start a program to change and to recover the school. This place start entrepreneur program and a small building, but at the end, this was some of the reason because we select where the competitions of the library park has to be. And these library parks connected with the old centrality. This is the cable car station, the school, the street, the Mirador Park, the library park, and the centrality. So, as well, we're defining a catalog of how to operate in the public space, very simple as well, trying to define in a good quality the different conditions of the public space, the pavements, the lighting, etc. And in different scale, in other places of the city as well, our key was the street, how to transform the mobility, how to build a new space of the street that links the botanical garden, the new Explora Park, the cultural of Moravia, the center here that is at the ends of Carabobo, for example. So, another idea that for us is very important is the management and the participation programs. I am not going to explain in detail how it operates, but for us, the most important thing is to understand that physical projects, like a process where we can involve the community from the beginning of the process, defining some strategies, of course, not all of them, but start to talking and building different spaces of participation. I think we understand the architects and the persons who start to work with that projects like mediators, trying to use in some way as well the cultural activities to incorporate communication and socialize some of the programs. And as well, maybe later in the conversation we can talk about it. One of the problems of our institutions is that they don't permit to work in an holistic programs inside the traditional structure in the municipalities. So Medellin defined not in an organic term, in some way in a creative term from the Edu company and from different institutions like metropolitan area, etc., some ideas and some methodologies trying to coordinate that operations. And as well, the way how the city and the community activate the space and use the space, of course, is the most important thing. We are in university here today. So the connection between universities and the real life and the public sector is for us is one of the keys. We are trying to continue in a very deeply way, working in that way. Those are some of the works that we have been doing in 2000, 2001, before we arrived to the municipality. That was one of the reasons we built in the Universidad Bolivariana a workshop that we call the workshop for the north, for the poorest part of the city. From that place, we can start some debates, put some ideas in public, and this is one of the reasons because Fajardo called us to help and to start to work with him. But today, we are completely convinced that the key, or one of the keys, is to give sustainability and to start new projects. Doesn't have to come always from the top down. So some very special cultural centers, for example, Moravia, start from the top down, but today the strongest of that cultural center belongs to the bottom down, because with different contemporary actions, arts, they involve the community to give information and to start many different projects. So this is one thing that we have been doing and we did. Today from urban, we are working close to the municipality and to the state in 3 new, not new, connected with all of these social urbanism strategy, but new projects. We are develop a strategy because we did projects in the middle part of the slopes. We are trying to understand and how to anticipate the condition that is more complex than that in the upper part. With the informal and unconsolidated city, the consolidation is higher. So we are doing with Dani Vélez between Urban and the University of Harvard a research program research work that we call Shifting Ground. We just finished the last year. This plan that we bring here to the library is a plan that was doing through the municipality to the metropolitan area, and from our urban center, we help to develop and to do the strategies, the different strategies. We call that plan the 2030 because it's a director plan that trying to define the natural conditions, the mobility, the public space, and the new activities, but in the metropolitan scale. One of the biggest problems that we have is the imbalance between the municipality of Medellin and the other 10 municipalities. So how to translate, to move those political strategies that from Medellin to the other municipalities as well, and how to incorporate the natural system, the sustainability, and different approaches. And the other project that we are going, I'm not sure if we are going, Beatriz, but we love to do, is in this region, the Urabá and Chocó, where the Atrato River is, that is a very beautiful natural system. We have, from the last year, some tragedies here because the small locations that are located on the side of the river were flooding because the rainy season. So how to recover some of these small towns and to work with the natural conditions. These are some of the new mapping that the city is doing, and we did here in the book about the metropolitan area, the different system, the natural system, the indicators. And to end, some ideas of the shifting ground project that belongs to that complex areas that we have a lot of land slopes and are completely connected with the community in a very difficult situations. Medellin has a extreme situation of that characteristic that help us to understand and to anticipate, trying to anticipate and to relocate some of this housing there. So the geology of of Medellin is very complex. We have a very bad geology conditions in that line, and this is a map of the different tragedies that we have from the last years and the last century. The work is starting. We are trying to build a view for 2 or 3 years, trying to translate from the research that we are today to trying to move to the real action, defining what are the causes, how we can act, and defining as well a new strategies to anticipate and to recover that spaces. So to end, this is my son. I would like to recommend 2 books. For me, one of the most beautiful books that I have read from the last years that helped me to understand many things about Colombia. This is a book that was written from Wade Davis. Wade Davis is an ethnobotanical that came from Harvard University, and he writes the book that the name is The River. The book is the description of in some way, the biography of Schultz, his master, that he went from the 30s, 40s, and 50s to Colombia. And to understand that cosmos, the world of the jungle, the local natives, and the universe of the coca, not the cocaine, that is different, completely different world. And this, for me, is one of the most beautiful books that you can understand what happened in Medellin. Was writing from Héctor Abad Fashion Lindsay. You are going to have this book in April here in English version, and within this name, El Olvido que Seremos. Is the history of he and his father that he found dead in a street at the end of the 80s, and he found in the pocket of his father a little piece, a little poem from Jorge Luis Borges that the name was El Olvido que Seremos. But at the back of this relation, you can understand all the critical moments from Medellin. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Alejandro, stay here with us because we have some room for comments or questions from the audience, please.
I was wondering, thank you so much for this presentation. This is really enlightening and really inspiring. I was wondering if you could actually elaborate a little bit more in detail on some of the processes through which you're integrating the community and encouraging participation, agency, and ownership that has been mentioned a couple times now.
Perfect. You can help out. Okay, perfect. See, I was here and... Huh? Okay. So, I think we learn a lot through the process. From the beginning, of course, we start with the idea that the interventions from the physical way have to be integral view. But many of these ideas I tried to explain at the first part of the conference belongs to the leadership of our politicians. So it's very important to understand that many of these things could not happen if the leadership of, for example, Sergio Fajardo was a key person of that. So he was the idea and the program of the city that we call, and he called Medellin the most educated city. So how to put all the different, and to build the education and culture like an umbrella that could give us and help us to move many different programs. So we, like technicians, help him to read the territory, to define steps, to define in a very precisely way the territory, and trying to understand the approach of that, all of those different programs. And the expression of that programs is is in some way the architecture and the urbanism interventions. So through that way or trip, the community is involved in many different manners. So the city developed a participatory budget. I'm sorry, I love this. The participatory budget that give the community the possibility to define 10% of the investment, but this is a very risk strategy, but we help the community in these strategic sectors to give them the information and to help them how to prioritize and to improve that ideas. But in the way we start the integral urban projects with a strategic view, like a technicians and the program, but as well simultaneously we put a team of social workers and architects and engineers walking to the place, walking to the barrios 2 or 3 months, defining and helping the community to identify which are the dangerous corners, where the most important places of the neighborhood. And many of those barrios has a very big leadership. So in some way, and in some neighborhoods, there are some very powerful institutions that stay there from 20 years. How can give visibility to them? How can incorporate that? It's not a linear process. It's not the same process in each place. It's in some way a way that you are learning and you are open to talk with the people and to incorporate things. But of course, it's not ideal. So I think we today have a different view from that time. And for example, in our research center, we choose, and we are working with a very beautiful cultural center that we call the Yellow House in some neighborhoods, and they built, from the bottom up, they built a development plan from the community. So we are today in the different direction. We are helping them and start to work with them how can we support and redefine in some way the plan that they have, and we can help to connect them with the municipality in different ways. So we have different strategies. For example, the imaginary workshops, the walks that the people do, the traditional juntas de acción comunal, the meeting community. But one of the most important is trying to give visibility and to give power a new leadership, to try and help to build new leaders inside the barrios, because many of those existing juntas are too much politicized.
Yes.
Okay.
First of all, I appreciate very much your presentation. There's a lot of things that we haven't seen here in New York. My question is, Fajardo was at Charlie Rose, that it's a program on TV maybe last year, and he made 3 points that I would like your opinion on. The first one was he commented on, I think his father was an architect, and the importance of architecture, not just as a planning device, but as I think you used the word symbolic, as a signaling change. And I think the libraries, several of the buildings that you're showing make a statement. And so I would like you to, as somebody involved in teaching, how do you approach planning versus kind of iconic architecture, and whether you aspire the students to have both or more one or the other. And the second one is, he also made a point. He made 2 points that in relationship to money. The first one was that he had made a decision as mayor to put the most resources in the worst off neighborhoods, with the idea that people with the least amount of money were deserving of the most architectural attention. And then the last thing, he said that most of these projects were paid for by taxes, basically, that they're municipal projects paid with the taxes collected from the municipality. And I was wondering, even though if the society, you said that most of the city is informal, yet it seems like when it comes time to collecting taxes, people actually pay taxes. And so what kind of mechanism, what type of taxes? Is these taxes, for light, for electricity and gas and things like that? Or they are taxes to salaries? Or what type of taxes finance this type of work?
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm going to be very far off this. Sure. So, yes, I think we talk easily with Fajardo. He understands very well, and he put in a value the architecture and design, because he grew up on the table drawing of his father. So he's a mathematician, PhD. He was not politics. He belongs to the civic movements and the research world before he won the election. But he has the experience of his father, that his father is a very, very important architect and very good person as well. So from the start, when we start to work with him, he give me, different people in some way the power to lead some strategies, because he believed in that idea that the programs and the politics has to become visible and has to become integral as well. So, I am an architect and a designer. I did studies of urban planning as well, but I still design. I am not talking about design, but I still design buildings. So from the first days, we tried to break that logic of planning in the way that you have to do the things sequentially, with sequence, yes. So we start a strategy like planning and action, and define the urban projects, and with architecture as well, trying to define our steps, how we can involve the holistic idea of the political program of educational culture, and define the steps. But the steps was defining for the projects. But as well, these steps define the times when we did the participations, not parties, but meetings. We involved the education and cultural programs, how to activate at the end the public space. So the physical conditions and the urban projects helps us a lot to define precisely the actors as well. So, but at the same time, we're trying to build a big picture, how to operate in punctual actions and how to operate in a big picture. Paradoxically, today I am working in the planning scale from the urban as well, from the urban center. So we always trying to combine that wide vision with a concrete action that help us. The question for the budget. Today, for example, we are working with Teddy Cruz, trying to build, he has a lot of interest to build and to draw a new map that can describe the complexity of the different relations from the institutions that help us and help Medellin to do that kind of project, because it's very complex, it's a very complex map of relations. So, the first thing that Fajardo did was to change and to actualize the tax of property. Was very difficult in the political terms, but he increased the budget of the municipality in 24-26, between 24 and 26%. And trying as well to localize the money and the budget in a strategic areas. In this way, we select areas, and we have to leave other areas, trying to do it in more holistic way. The city have been doing from before many different quantity of projects, but in a dispersed view. So maybe you feel in some way that a whole picture of Medellin is transforming, but the reality is that are very strategic points. So the strategy has to continue, keep 15 or 20 years. A lot of work we have to do from them. But as well, one of the most important things is that the transparency and the confidence that the last governments built with the private sector, with the universities and the society is very important, because increase as well the budget of the city. And for example, Medellin today is the most efficient big city in Colombia to invest. You pay, from 1 peso that you pay, 82 goes to investment and projects. And only 18 goes to the function of the municipality. And is rated from the banks with triple A. In 2007 was the first time that Medellin sailed here in the stock market. How do you say stocks? Okay. And was completely successful. So, but as well, one of the keys of Medellin is the public company that Medellin owns. Medellin owns the company that owns the electricity, the water supply, and the telecommunications, and has close to the 30% of the market in Colombia, and as well owns the hydroelectrics in Panama, Honduras, and different countries of Central America. So this is a very important company, very well management, and give a lot of profits each year. The 30% of that profit goes to the municipality. And the new schools and some library parks and, for example, a new program of education came from that money. So it's a combination. As well, from the last 8 years, the public sector and the private sector is very close. But it's not an ideal picture. I'm telling you the good thing. So at the back, we have the worth of the narco money. So the city recovered a lot, the space, our life, the conditions, but the narco money still exists. Many of that narcos have linked with the Mexicans. So if the market exists, we have to live all the life with that. Maybe Medellin and Colombia moved a little bit that problem, but we have to continue pushing to change things.
Perhaps
Okay.
one more question.
Alejandro, thank you for your presentation. You briefly mentioned the area of Urabá y Chocó and its level of biodiversity. You also mentioned that there is a level of research that's happening in this region. And I would like for you to explain a little bit more in depth what the scope of this research is, what the eventual goals of this research could be, and perhaps also, does it stay at the purely academic level? Does it bleed into the government? And is there an interest of the government of Antioquia or the national government to pursue this region as a strategic region and connection to Panama via either the ETA, the electrical transmission line, or through the Pan American Highway? Something you didn't speak about too much. You mostly spoke about Medellin, but this area really interests me.
So you are from, where are you from?
I was born in the States, but I'm Colombian.
Yes, okay. So, you know, Urabá and Chocó is one of the most strategic areas from South America. And nobody knows. No, nobody knows. Of course, some people knows, but most of the people don't realize. From Medellin, many institutions, universities, privates, did works, research about Urabá. Colombia has a big market of bananas to export, and came all of them from that area. From the last year, that area discovered some very important minery, cool, different things. But the most important is the strategic location of that links Pacific and Atlantic to the Asian, could open a market to the Atlantic and through Colombia as well. But the reality is that we are very, very back, very far away of that. So the new governor, many things that I say and many things that you say are today dreams, but are no reality. But the new governor put like that urban integral projects when he was in the municipality, the Urabá region. So was an opportunity, a huge opportunity. In the real term, because they start to work with the state of Chocó. And I think today is not in that level in the national priorities, but maybe in 2 years will be. So for us was a old dream, because, for example, my dream is to have to end my life in a small Pacific house on the coast, inside the jungle. So maybe I use this work to get there. So
Well, thank you very much again, Alejandro.